friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Elenbaas, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. I am so glad you're here today. And if you're new to my channel, welcome in. This is a fun place to be. I think so, at least. So if you like this channel, if you want to listen first, makes sense. But if you want to subscribe, that would be a great way for you to stay connected with me and support my channel and to help other people like you find me to talk about plant medicine, imagination, and just the kind of wild, crazy world of healing, because it is wild and crazy if we really think about it. So today, what we're going to do is go back to a video I recorded about a year ago on imagination and healing. And I think this is a really powerful topic, especially right now, because a lot of us are feeling kind of a little displaced. Some of the things we never imagined could happen are happening for better and for worse. So I feel like now is a really good time to talk about the power of imagination in our healing journey, to think about the power of our desire body and how that can start to really amplify our creative forces within. Right now, here where I live in Minnesota, spring is starting to come forward. We're a little later than other places on the Northern Hemisphere, but spring is just starting to show its face. And there is this surge of energy that's coming up. And so if we can harness that energy right now through the power of our mind and imagination and work with plants to even help us get more clear about how do we create this vision and bring it into actual fruition, then that's a good thing. So I'm excited to share this episode with you and hope you find it to be as invigorating and inspiring as I found it to be when I was doing the research to share it with you. Before we go into it, I want to tell you a little bit about my upcoming herbal apprenticeship course, which starts April 24th. This is a really great way for people who love plants at all different levels. Maybe you're a brand new beginner or you've been working with herbs and plants for a long time. If you want to go to that next level and you want to have a community around you supporting your study of plants, then I've got a place for you to come grow and land. I'm going to share my screen, bring you to the Sky House Herbs website. There'll be a link below in the description. So once you land on the website, go over to courses, click Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship, and you'll be brought to the course page. And you'll see a lot of information, some testimonials from students who've taken my class before, and just a lot of detailed information about the course. So if you want to learn more about the types of things we'll study, everything from medicine making to plant spirit medicine to phytochemistry, and to just the general philosophy that we as herbalists embody, and those of us who embody the vitalist tradition. So that is my background, is as a vitalist. I believe we all have a vital force that can be nurtured and nourished through the healing powers of nature and the plants. So you'll learn all about that, how to apply that to your life and apply it through the plants. So we will take in, you'll take in 10 plants specifically as tonics, and then other plants that are really deep supportive. So if you want to see our plant list, it's right here, and course modules are here. But what's most important I wanted to bring you down to is that our enrollment is now open. So if you want to enroll, there is still time, there is still space. You can make a single payment, click on 12 payments. You can do 12 monthly payments. And if these are out of your price range, then just come on down to our apply for tuition assistance button. Click on this, fill out your information, and tell us a little bit about your situation. Are you a single parent, unemployed, a full-time student, retired, have a fixed budget, you're receiving disability, or maybe there's something else? Let us know. Click on view pricing, and you'll be led to the next page, which is the official sign up page, which will show you your eligibility for tuition assistance. To apply for the program, just click on either of those options and fill out the information to get enrolled in our course. I would love to have you there. I think people who either are just finding my channel or who have been watching me and maybe studying with me for a while, you know that this is where my heart is in making this connection between people and plants and sacred ancient wisdom. So I hope you'll join me for a year of study. And if not, maybe you'll join me another time. So it's all good. So without further ado, let's go into looking at imagination, melancholy, and 2 herbs that can help you in this process. Hey everyone, welcome in. Today I have a very fun and exciting topic to share with you. We're going to talk about the power of the imagination. We'll talk about melancholy or melancholia and what it is, and then a few herbs you can work with to both counter and also support the work of imagination and melancholy. Before we dive into today's work, please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please just give it a click. It really helps other people to find me and for my work to spread. I'm trying to get to my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so we're getting close. And I just thank you for supporting my work and following my work as well. I also wanted to mention that our annual Kickstarter is underway. This is a great way for you to get rewards for donating and supporting our work. Both my husband and I create free content year-round for you so that this information can be available and accessible to all. So if you have found my work to be helpful, if you listen to my husband at Nightlight Astrology, if you want to support our work in any way, and if you'd like to get some rewards for your contributions, we've got recordings that will be available and also seats in all of our courses. So I'm going to screen share with you and hop you over to my husband's website and show you where the Kickstarter is. So we're going to go to Nightlight Astrology. So you can see this is the Nightlight Astrology website, and I'll include a link in the description. And then right here on this top bar is the 2025 Kickstarter. So you'll click on that, or I think I'll even have a link that just goes straight there, and you can find this page. If you'd like to back our project, you can click here and you'll see all of the different rewards. So you can pledge without a reward, totally fine. If you want an astrology calendar, you can pledge $25. There's a bunch of astrology rewards you can receive. If you are looking for herbal ones, you can join our Roots and Spheres Moon Circle that meets once a month, where we combine the astrology of each lunar month with a plant teacher. And then we meet as a community every month on the full and new moons, and we talk about it. And you all get a chance to taste the herbs, feel them with the transits, and share. We are also on this website, you can pledge to get a seat in my Herbal Foundations course. This is a 1-year course, and you can learn about herbs, everything from how to make herbs, how to identify them, and then how to use them and blend them. This course will start in May of 2025, and it is about half off if you purchase it through the online Kickstarter. You can also join the year 2 course. If you've already studied and taken my year 1, or you're a more advanced clinician interested in more advanced topics, you can join our year 2 course, which starts in November in the fall of 2025. So if you'd like to, please hop over, support our work. And in advance, I thank you. Thank you. Now, let's talk about today's topic: imagination, melancholy, and herbs. I think let's start with imagination, because I think that is where it all begins. And the power of imagination, I think, is something we don't give enough credit to. And I know for many of us, sometimes imagination gets caught up with lies. Like, am I imagining that? Is it true? And if sometimes we think, well, if I imagine it, then it must not be true, right? Like if I'm thinking of it, there must be something wrong about it. And I think for some strange reason, we have this equation of fantasy with lie. I wanted to share with you this wonderful reading from this is the Book of Qualities by Ruth Gendler, and I'll include a link to this if you're interested in buying it. I've had this book; it's like yellow. Look how old it is, probably for almost 20 years now. And what Ruth does is she describes all of these different qualities as if they were people. So I'm going to read to you the person that she describes as imagination. When imagination walks, she writes letters to the earth. When she runs, her feet trace postcards to the sun. When she dances, when she dances, she sends love letters to the stars. Some people accuse imagination of being a liar. They don't understand that she has her own ways of uncovering the truth. She studied journalism in junior high school. It gave her an excuse to leave school early and interview interesting people. She was surprisingly good at writing articles. When in doubt, she just made things up. More recently, imagination has been working as a fortune teller at the circus. She has this way of telling your fortune so clearly that you believe her, and then your wishes start to come true. Imagination is studying photography now with an eye to making films. She has no intention of working in one of those factories where they manufacture images that lull us to sleep. No, her vision is more complex and very simple. Even with the old stories, she wants us to see what has never been seen before. I love that. Don't you love that? So, if this is imagination, if it's helping us see things like we've never seen them before, finding old stories and truths, but like giving them a new outfit to wear, dressing them up a little differently. This is the gift of imagination. And I was listening to this wonderful therapist. Her name is Esther Perel. I don't know if any of you know her. She's this wonderful French therapist, and she has this podcast called Where Do We Begin? And she recently had on a guest who they focused on the topic of imagination and erotic fantasy. I loved this. I'll include a link in the description. But basically, what her and this other therapist were exploring is the power of the imagination to create fantasies that aren't meant to be lived out. That one of the great gifts of the imagination is it creates a safe place for us to play and explore ideas, to explore realities, to explore sort of alternate universes or alternate dimensions that we can live in without having to actually live in. You know what I mean? And so what that does for our spirit is it gives our spirit permission to explore the farthest reaches of our psyche, our psychology, and our soul's deepest longings. And so, in the world of like erotic fantasy around maybe sexual fantasies and things like this, for most people, this one woman was saying that in her book, she calls wants, she interviewed or collected anonymous fantasies from over 100 middle-aged women and cataloged them in a book. And she said, one of the most interesting things is that a lot of these women's fantasies and erotic fantasies were things that they actually didn't want to do. They were just something that lived inside that needed a place to express itself, and that it would come into the bedroom with them and their partner, or, with even just within themselves. And it provided a place where they could play with their own edges safely. And I feel like in the healing journey, there's something very, very similar that I feel is so important, is that we can use our imagination to go to those far places and imagining what we want our lives to look like, what we want our vital force to feel like. And, I think sometimes we can just get a little limited by looking around us in our immediate environment and being like, well, everyone else is stressed out. Everyone else has a boring job. Everyone else is like, a little unhealthy. And we kind of feel like, well, if everyone else is like this, then why should I have anything different? Why I should just be happy with this mediocre life I have. But if we actually think about who this girl is in imagination, that what she does is she plays with reality to create new ones. And she leans into the ability to tell story and to retell story, to make her life fascinating and fulfilling because she's doing what she wants. And I think we can do this in our own health and healing journey. It's so important. When we get to this place where we go, well, I'm middle aged. This is as good as it's going to get. Well, why? Like, is that actually true? And for example, I'm thinking about a woman I know who, when I was in my 30s, I met her and she was in her 50s. And she was an oncology nurse. Well, she still is. She's still alive and amazing. But she's an oncology nurse and she was doing Ironman, triathlons. And she worked with cancer survivors, getting them trained to do triathlons. And she was like, just this vivacious 50-year-old. And I've not since met anyone like her. She's just an incredible human. But she had this spirit and she had this vision. She did vision boards all the time. She was constantly doing vision boards. And she's like, and everything happens for me. She's like, I had this vision of sailing in Hawaii, and I'm going to Hawaii next month. And I met this person after I booked my ticket who has a sailboat in Hawaii. So my husband and I are going to meet up and we're going to sail on his boat. Like, she's just a yes person. And she has these ideas, and then she just gathers all of her imagination around it, and she never quite knows how it's going to work out, and it does. And along the way she inspires people, and in her life specifically, cancer survivors or people in remission who are like, I can push the edge a little bit. I can envision myself doing a triathlon, right? So it's that kind of imaginative power that can heal us. And we hear all of these stories of people who've had terminal diseases. We're told their prognosis, they've got 4 months to live, but they said, I see a different future. They saw it, they imagined it first, and then they gathered the energy around it to make it happen. And so I would like to bring that into the space right now. What is it that you fantasize about, that you dream about, the kind of either life you want, the kind of space you want to inhabit, like a type of home or space? What kind of vital force do you want to feel? What kind of mood? Like, this is such a good one. What kind of mood do you want to carry in your body for extended periods of time? Or what sort of consciousness do you want to embody? And rather than saying, well, that's just made up, or that's a lie, or that's impossible, what if we decorate that vision with yes? And what if we bring in plants to support it? And so the plant that I've paired with imagination, I think is such a great ally, is this one right here. Let's see if you know it. So this is rosemary, and I harvested it from my garden, I want to say maybe last week. So it's still very vital. It's definitely dry though. It's not, it's dried completely, and you can even hear the crackle of its dried leaves. Oh, but the smell is amazing. So rosemary, as you may know, is the herb, Shakespeare says it's the herb of remembrance. And so, I think of rosemary as being it's a very mentally stimulating herb. So it stimulates the imagination. I think it stimulates, yes, it has the signatures in terms of the elements of both fire and air. We see fire in that sort of flame, pointed, sharp, needle like leaf. We also see the element of fire in the smell. It's very aromatic, and strong aromatic smells are often associated with the element of fire. Those volatile oils are spicy. The taste is spicy and fiery. It increases circulation in the brain and in the gut and in the skin and of the blood. And then the air element is associated, we see it in the space around it. So plants that have a lot of air tend to have thinner leaves, and they tend to just have a lot of space, like I don't have another plant, but like we could even use this monstera. Like this is a very watery leaf. It's very big, it's very wide, it's thick. But here we have more air present. And so when we put air and we put fire together, well, we get either an uncontrolled fire, or if your fire's been low and you blow into it, it stokes the flame. So I really think of rosemary as an herb that stokes the flame of imagination. And there's a number of different ways you can use it. So one way would be just to use it in your cooking. So if you have it in your herb cabinet, just start sprinkling it into all the foods that you eat. Another thing you can do is burn it as a smudge. And I don't think I have my seashell here, but I have like a burning shell. So you can just place it in the shell and it will crackle and pop and burn, and it will send off the smoke. So you can, if you're going to be doing some seated time for visioning or vision boarding, you can light and actually burn this herb as a sort of smudge to really open up the imaginative space. You can also use rosemary as a hair rinse, and I like to do it as with vinegar. So you can take the dried rosemary, infuse it in vinegar. I really like apple cider vinegar for a few weeks. And, you don't have to do like a gallon. You could just do, maybe like a pint, right? And soak maybe about half a cup of your rosemary leaves in about a pint of apple cider vinegar. Let it soak for a few weeks, strain it, and then use that on your hair. And it makes your hair really shiny, and it's also really good for your scalp. And you'll feel it kind of like a mint. It'll tingle the scalp. It's really good for dandruff, which is actually kind of fungal in nature, so it's antifungal. But it's also just really good at stimulating the follicles, so that they'll grow more thick and hold on to your hair more strongly. So it has like that particular quality. Also, rosemary was used by the Druids as an herb of the ancestors. So it had a strong affinity to ancestral ties and bringing up memories from the ancestral realms. So when we're thinking about imagination too, we can think about our ancestors, like what were the dreams and visions of our grandparents? And if we know, maybe our great grandparents. And if you're not sure and they're still alive, ask them, like, what have been some of your fantasies? Like, what were some of the things, and even ask, like, what were some of the things you dreamed about that came true? Like, what were some of the things that you were really, that seemed really far away and then you achieved them? And those can be kind of good things to add into the pot of your own visioning. So rosemary, I think, is a really good plant because it does draw upon that idea of ancestral information coming into the mix. And, like I said about, things, whether whether the fantasy comes true or not isn't the point. The point is to feed it because it is a part of you. And it's almost like, for any of you who are creatives, maybe like you've written a book or you're an artist, there's something about when the idea comes into your head, if you don't feed it or water it, or in the case of like a book or art, if you don't actually make it or put it down, it will disappear. Like I think Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, what is it? Big something, big life, big, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But yeah, she talks about big magic. That's it. She talks about, yeah, like basically like ideas will, if you don't give them life, they'll go to someone else. And so like that's why somebody will be like, hey, I wrote that book. Like that was my idea for a book. But you know what? You didn't write the book or publish it. So then it went to this person. And I think the same thing can be true for fantasy and imaginative ideas, is like we have to give them attention and we have to explore them and be curious about them and give them a little bit of screen time in our inner screen so that we can stay connected to those parts of ourselves and those deeper desires and needs, even if we don't ever even if they don't ever actually happen, that there's a power and a magic and an importance in giving them space. So that is the first herb, and that's our rosemary. We can also brew rosemary as a tea, and it's a really nice one to blend with a little bit of honey or something sweet. It also blends well with cinnamon, is another flavor that works well with rosemary. So you can just play with it. You don't have to take the herb just on its own when you're working with it, although that can be nice, but it just kind of depends on your palate, what what you can hold on to. So the second part I wanted to talk about is melancholy. And I was reading this really interesting article that I'll include a link to about melancholia and creativity. And so, in the ancient Greek system of the humors, you might be familiar with these, and the humoral system combines the four elements, so earth, water, air, and fire, and then the four qualities, which are hot, cold, damp, and dry. And then this idea of these combining to create the humors, which are like these fluids in our body. And when these fluids are in balance, the body is healthy. When one of these gets out of balance, or a few of them get out of balance, the body is unhealthy. And each of us constitutionally has one humor that's sometimes a little bit higher than others. And this can be because of our, this can be related to our birth chart. So in the humoral theory, often we could see what tendency a person might have constitutionally by looking at mostly their rising sign, sun and moon as well. And then certain angles were used also to figure out a person's constitutional temperament. But the four main humors were sanguine, which is more of like an airy, it's like more associated with air and springtime. They're a little bit more of that jovial, kind of lighthearted, tend to eat a little bit too much. They tend to kind of overindulge their senses. Then we have the choleric temperament. This person is more associated with fire and more associated with maybe like a little bit of crabbiness. The choleric person is like the, just sort of agitated, fast, sharp tongued. They kind of have a little bit of a bilious nature to them. Then we have the, let's see, fire. We have air, a water. So then we have, well, the melancholic type is kind of the watery type. And then the melancholic type, which is the one that we're going to talk about, is associated with the element of black bile. And the melancholic is what it sounds like. It's like the person who is just kind of like a little darker, a little heavier. Their qualities are associated to more of like the Saturnine type of personality, like kind of cold, hard, and dry. And yeah, like you can kind of think about the sort of Capricorn, Aquarius kind of axis, and those sort of qualities are very common in the melancholic type. So I wanted to talk about those ones specifically, and then the last one. I can't believe I didn't. We'll come back to the last one because it's in my mind. So these humoral types, again, like some people are born with more, some people are born with one higher, others lower. But the melancholic type is really interesting when we're thinking about the imagination, because they were associated with like the misfits, the hermits, the people that lived on the fringe of society, sometimes even criminal behavior, people that just kind of always were not ever completely integrated into society. And at the same time, the melancholics were also the great creatives. And so if we think a lot about like a lot of artists, we think about the melancholic artist who's just like alone in their dark room listening to The Cure and like and then like paint and then coming up with these brilliant masterpieces, these brilliant paintings, and these intense dark stories that move us at a deep soul level. And they're Ficino and Aristotle, they both talked about black bile as one of the powers of black bile, or this melancholic temperament, is that it can burst into flame, into creative flame. So if you think about like, wood that is really dry and brittle, that's kind of like the melancholic temperament. It's that very Saturn dry and hard and cold, is that that dry wood can just burst into flame at the slightest amount of like heat or exposure to fire. And so the melancholic will go through long periods of dark, cold, repressed, quiet isolation, and then just explode into a creative frenzy and produce just incredible art and inspiring work. And so I wanted to bring this up because I think that sometimes we think about depression, and I'm not talking here about clinical depression. If we're talking, if you think you have clinical depression, it's important you see a physician, a therapist, work on it. But I'm talking about melancholy, which is not as severe as clinical depression. This is just the mood of isolation, darkness, and reservation, because sometimes we actually need to go into those states of melancholia before we can go into the states of imagination and fantasy. And right now, as we're going into the autumn and the winter months, there's a natural tendency for us to retreat. There's a natural tendency for us to start thinking about death because it's outside of us. We're watching things die. We're experiencing the cold, the harshness of the weather, social activities are slowing down. There's a lot that's helping us make that inward journey that the melancholics do so easily. And even if we don't have a melancholic temperament, I just want to say that I think now is a good time to get in touch with your inner melancholic. And if you can schedule a day, that's my fire talking. I'm not a very good melancholic. I like to be busy, but on like when I have been healing from pneumonia, which I got really sick for a few weeks, I got into my melancholic body and I laid on the couch. I listened to some really deep ambient music. I read books. I would close my eyes and just lay there. I would doodle and do some art. And it was just a very restful, deep, quiet, reflective time. And from that, all of these new ideas, including my year 2 apprenticeship, came through because of that time I took back. I stepped out of my life, took some space from my life, and then had the visions and the creativity to step back into it. So, and then, there were a lot of other fantasies and imaginations that also came up during that time that haven't come true and they may never, but they were just like, I think it's nice to hang out in those spaces sometimes and just be like, I wonder what it would look like if, or what would it feel like to live in Paris for a year? What would I do? What would my life look like? Where would I go? Or, what would it look like to live completely off the grid? Like, what would I run up against? What would I love about it? What would I hate about it? Um, what would my children do? Right? Like, these are the types of things, these worlds that we can enter into, and giving ourselves the freedom to go as far out as our mind can take us. Like, what is the fantasy that feels so crazy and outside of your comfort zone? And can you sit down and write a few words about it? And then, again, like explore what is it in that you need? And maybe a small part of that can come in. And it's almost like we're gathering. It's like going out in the woods with a basket and gathering herbs. Like, you don't really know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to find. Even in the woods, the best because you go there every year after year after year. There's always a surprise in the woods. So, in the same way, in our own psyches, it's good to roam out and to look around and to be really curious, because in our own healing and reclamation of the different parts of ourselves that we might have lost along the way, I definitely lost parts of myself in my 30s that were a huge part of me in my teens and 20s. And I'm like, oh, I remember that part of myself. I'm a deadhead. Like, come back. Like, let's put you back in the basket, right? Like, and then I've been listening to Grateful Dead. Like, I didn't listen to them for like 10 years just because it fell out of my basket. And I had to go out and find things and bring them back. And I think that's a part of the healing journey, is just going out to the reaches of our minds and our memories and our ancestral memories, and gathering things back up, and mentally playing with them. Again, we don't have to manifest. We can just very simply play with them. Okay, let me grab one more note. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of an herb that can be helpful for this sort of melancholic exploration. So um, I don't have the I don't have an herbal example of this, but I'll talk you through it, and maybe I'll include a link for a photo for the herb. The last, I knew I would circle back to this. Okay, so the last the humoral constitution is the phlegmatic type. So the phlegmatic type is more of, so we could think of probably like the melancholic is a little bit more like the earth. They're like the most dense. And then the phlegmatic type is the most watery. They're like the most phlegmatic people. They tend to be like more watery signs. They tend to be a little bit more like prone towards like mucus and stagnation. Um, and they also like to take things in, and they're also very emotional. That's kind of one of their signatures, is the phlegmatic is very empathetic, very compassionate, but also, you know, empathetic can also be not always in balance too, just like any of them. But so I just wanted to throw that into the basket before we left those humoral types. Okay, burdock. Burdock is an herb for exploring melancholia. And this is for a few reasons. So the ancient Dutch called burdock patiente, which means the patient one. And if you've ever been around burdock, and I'm talking really about, you could really use any burdock here, greater burdock, lesser burdock. We're talking about the roots if you're going to take it as a medicine, but just as like sort of a plant spirit, just if you wanted to go sit with one, it could be sitting with the leaves as well. So burdock is a very earthy, it has a very deep taproot. It's part of the Asteraceae family, or the daisy or composite family. And in the subgroup, it's in the thistle subgroup because it has these spiky, thistly burrs that stick to your skin on the seed pods. But burdock, also, I remember Seven Song, one of my herbal teachers, talked about it being like the herb of the hedge ruffians because it likes to grow along the borders, and it's associated with people that kind of live outside. They kind of like live on the edge, they live on the fringe. And it's kind of this dirty, kind of big, kind of yeah, kind of like plain looking, weed, you could say. And it is also the when the Dutch called it the patiente, it was because they believed that this was an herb that also helped one stay in melancholia, so that they could be patient and resist the temptations to go too quickly back to society. So it gave them the fortitude to stay out in the cave, to stay out in the outskirt of town, in the little log cabin, to stay, outside of the busyness of the city longer, so that they could do that deep penetrative work of going down, 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 like the root, and then pulling and drawing up the nutrients and drawing up the deep things from the earth below, the minerals, the stories, the ancestral knowledge, all of that from deep, deep down. And the roots can get like, 4 to 6 feet long. They're huge, massive roots. And so, if we're thinking about what's going to maybe give us that staying power to stay and to build, and it's not melancholic as like, it's not going to make you depressed. There's nothing in this herb that is depressing. It's actually a blood mover and blood cleanser medicinally, but like as more of a talismanic herb, one that we can take in internally or just sit with. It has this beautiful presence to it of like, douche, I'm here. And I know if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, boom, I'm here. And it has, yeah, it's just a very powerful plant. So here are some ways you can work with burdock to embrace your inner melancholic. So you can buy the dried root from most herb suppliers and you can decoct it on your stove. So I'd recommend maybe doing like a teaspoon to start in about maybe 2 to 3 cups of water. Put the lid on top and simmer it for, maybe 15, 20 minutes, then let it sit for another 20 minutes, strain it, and just sip half of that. See how your body does. One thing that's true about burdock when you decoct it this way is it's full of inulin, which is a soluble fiber that is really good for your gut microbiome. So it feeds the good bacteria in your gut. If you tend to have an imbalanced gut, it might make you kind of gassy and bloated, which is why I say, just drink like half of it and see how you do. Some of you might just be like, oh my gosh, this feels like deep soul nourishment, and you might just drink the whole thing and have no problems. Some of you who have more sensitive stomachs, if you've taken antibiotics recently, or if you have a lot of gut stuff happening, you might be like, oh, I drank half of it and that was like, I started to get a little gassy, bloated. I'm going to go down to half of that. And you can just titrate down. And maybe for you, it's even a sip and you get that feeling, and then that's good for your body. So just you can titrate down as you need. That's one way to work with this plant. You can also go to your local, sometimes they have it at co-ops or health food stores. I know you can usually get it at an Asian market. It's called gobo, and this is burdock root. Just fresh burdock root, and you just kind of cook it like you would a parsnip or a carrot. I would skin it, especially if you don't know if it's organic. I would peel the skin or like the root bark or the root skin off, slice it up, stir fry it, add it to soups, use it like you'd use a parsnip or a carrot, and eat it as a food. And it's very high in these really good fats and oils. It's really good for the skin, for the hair, for the nails. So you can just kind of play with it as a food too, for nourishment and for grounding. So that is burdock. And what else did I want to say about it? I think that's all I wanted to say about that. So in closing, take some time, if you can, over the next few days to go into maybe a low lit space. Think about a hermit. Create a little environment where you can go in and think about your fantasies. Think about the things that are living on the edge of your imagination and spend some time with them. And I know for me, sometimes the car can be a good time to think. It's like my own quiet office on wheels. So if you don't have, just get creative. This is the thing. Just get creative. Find time that you can really go into these fantasies and give them your attention. And that's all. You don't have to do anything about it. Just give them, water them with your attention and see what happens. To me, this is a part of the healing journey for really getting our vital force in alignment with our physical bodies, getting our vital force in alignment with our creative bodies. And oftentimes it's amazing when we give ourselves time and space for creative ventures like this, our health, our moods, our cravings, our symptoms start to equalize and come back to a place of greater balance and ease. And sometimes symptoms just disappear. Sometimes cravings go away. Sometimes the thing we've been fantasizing about, we explore it so deeply, we go, okay, I'm finished with that. Like I took that as far as it could go. And like, I've got a new one. This one's now coming in. Um, but the more we shut those parts of ourselves out, the more we have dark rooms in our bodies and minds that get dusty. And, we got to open the doors. It's a part of whole system health is open the doors, go into all your rooms and make peace with all those parts of yourself. With that, I will close. I thank you again for supporting my channel. Please support us on our Kickstarter page. I'll include a link in the description. And thank you for just being here with me and this journey that we are sharing together of exploring the power of plants, the power of symbols, and the power of patterns. So I'll see y'all in the next episode.